Hey, I'm here today with Fernando Vazquez. He's a student at ORU, currently in his master's program, but he started from undergraduate studies. Fernando, what's it been like at the university during your time at undergrad?
It's been quite difficult, just trying to get into the motion of doing studying, uh, interacting with new people, especially international students. It's been a great blessing being able to interact with them, get their culture, and understand it at a more deeper level.
How did you get to ORU? What is it that you think brought you here?
I think the thing that brought me here was you, of course, because hearing you going here to ORU was a good time for you, and I've only seen that, and it's the only college I wanted to go to because of that.
Wow. Do you feel like you've grown, let's say, as a person or even spiritually while your time was here?
I feel like I've grown. I became very social during my time here, and spiritually, it's been a process in growing. I've learned many things. I've learned patience, and even when I feel alone, I know I'm not alone.
You know, it's funny, the word patience in the King James Version is from the Greek is translated as long suffering. I think sometimes we forget that because as that develops in you, it really is an excruciating process for that to really happen for you. When you graduated, what did that feel like from undergrad? What was that like? What did you major in first? Sorry.
Biblical literature, I didn't think I was going to pass because 2 days before graduation, it said I owed some classes. So even 2 days before graduating, I wasn't even sure. Even while on stage, I didn't believe I was going to walk. I thought they were going to call my name saying like, yay, you forgot a couple classes. But I graduated. I wasn't like in the best spirits because I didn't get any sleep because I was doing assignments, making sure everything was turned in. But I did it somehow.
What is it that made you want to go to grad school? Because you have a degree and, you're like, why would you want to go back and put yourself through this?
I think there was more of a calling in my life besides just understanding the Bible and learning about many different types of theologies. I think I've always been called to help people, and that's why I chose to come back and start doing my LPC in counseling.
So what's the difference between like pastoral care versus like a licensed counselor?
Well, pastoral care, it does help with a lot of spiritual aspects, but I think the counseling kind of like, at least what I'm going for is Christian counseling. So it mixes both between just normal spiritual stuff going on and also worldly stuff, many disabilities, and I'm trying to understand that and how many of these situations that people go through are not just sometimes worldly stuff, like maybe they have some kind of disability. Sometimes it can be like spiritual stuff that's going on as well.
So able to discern the difference between like a spiritual attack versus something that someone has as an actual disability is something that's important that many people may not be able to discern, isn't it, right?
Yes.
What's the semester been like for you right now?
Uh,
You were at home for a little bit doing it online, right? How's it different between online and at the university?
I think doing it online, it's a little harder to keep motivated. There's not like a lot of assignments. Like it's not as difficult, but getting the motivation to just kind of get out of bed was kind of difficult compared to here where there's a lot of different places I can go to, like the library has been a great motivation to keep going. Just being there, seeing other students that are also working very hard, it kind of motivates me to work hard as well.
Yeah, I think that having the peer pressure where other people are doing academic work and seeing them, it's easier to kind of get into that vibe versus when you're having to motivate yourself all the time, that can be kind of difficult for you. So you've been here for how long are you from undergrad to where you're at now? How many years have you been on this campus?
I think I've been here for like 6 years. About 6.
I can relate to that experience.
Yeah.
It's a different one. We were at chapel today. Mr. Stovall spoke. Obviously he has a lot of tenure with the university from his dad and working with oral and those different things. What was your takeaway from the chapel today?
I think just not to give up. Yeah. That's been something I know. I think when a lot of people think, because he's blind, and I know I can't even imagine how that might feel. And despite him being blind and learning that he's going, or when he learned he was going to be blind, it didn't stop him. He kept going, and God provided him the things that he needed to be successful.
Yeah, you see, Stovall was an individual who was training basically to be a football player. He had the physical aptitude for it. He was going to go to a university on a full ride, and he probably could have been pro. But one time he went to the doctor, and that physical took him one specialist, another specialist, and another specialist, until they all came to a concurrent agreement. They were like, look, you're going to be blind, sooner than later. And that was something that was very hard for him to process. And all the universities had already stopped admission, but his dad told him, ORU will take you in. And at the time, the person who was in charge of the academic affairs told him, what we'll do is, there weren't like books where you could read audio books back then. somebody had to read it to you. So he assigned an individual that would help him to actually read the assignments and the books and different things to him. And it was going to be one person per class, so like English and history and different things. And the very first person he assigned, he basically told the dean, like, I'm good. Just leave me with her. And that ended up being his future wife. So that was kind of a very cool story, how he shared that experience about the different things and how God has used him. I think sometimes when we look at a disability, we let it hold us back. We let it prevent us from doing anything. Sometimes we think, whether it's immigration status or whether it's I'm just not smart enough, these different things are things that we put upon ourselves sometimes as holding us back. And it's something that prevents us from being able to take that next step. But what we learned, and I thought the chapel was interesting, is you can let a difficulty become a stumbling block and hold you back. Or you can say, you know what? That's not going to limit me. I'm going to be able to keep going and to keep moving forward because I know that that's the calling that God has for it. With Fernando, I've known him since he was a baby. He was a little person. And seen him grow throughout the years, basically from high school now to university, now 6 years at a university. And he's grown a lot in that aspect. What do you think has been the most impactful thing that ORU has done in your life? Just being here, what has it really done that kept you going?
I think meeting people that are going through their own struggles and realizing that there are other people that are going through these situations and they're still able to keep going, even when it becomes difficult. And I think just having those people around is inspiring.
Yeah, that's true. I think the type of people that you meet when your vision is where you're supposed to be, like if God's guided you to a certain place, I think divine appointment, sometimes he puts certain people in front of you, and some of these people are there to remind you that you're able to overcome difficulties, and other times God may put them in your life because you can offer something to them that they may not have in another circumstance. And I know you've always had a heart to serve, in a sense that you didn't know if it was pastoral or counsel, but you've always had an ear for listening to people and for trying to help people where they are. What is the difference, from like actual counseling to what you would think, like maybe think back to high school when people would ask you like for advice, hey, Fernando, what should I do? How is that different than actual professional counseling is?
I think a lot of the counseling, at least the thing that I've noticed the most, is when in high school they wanted advice, they wanted an immediate answer. When regular counseling, it's sometimes not like that. Sometimes we don't have all the answers, but it impacts people a lot when you just kind of listen to their problems and take notes and just try to validate their feelings and what they're going through. That does a lot for people.
Yeah, I think you're right. Professional counseling does require you to listen, to create notes or with the intakes and these different types of things. But it also requires you to help the individual, kind of restate the situation. I guess a lot of people may not realize why they're experiencing what they're experiencing, or they may not have that full understanding of whatever they're going through. They're just looking for how to get out of it. Mm-hmm. But what you're saying is true. In order to get out of a situation, you kind of have to understand what brought you to it and why you're in that. What do you think prevents people from seeking counselors? Like, why do you think people may be afraid?
One big thing, at least that I've been learning in my current class, is culture. That's been a huge thing. I think when it comes to culture, mainly the family structure, who's the head of the household. If they already have a negative outlook on counseling, they're like, no, don't do that. That's bad for you. And because of that, that's one thing that holds people back. And another thing is that language barriers is a big one, and culture, like I said, people believe that other people won't relate to them because they're not part of the culture. They don't know what they're all about.
What's it like for you as an individual of a Hispanic descent, being in Oklahoma and Tulsa? Has that been different for you, just in that whole cultural experience?
I would say a little bit. One thing that I miss a lot is the food. There's not good Mexican food. No, it's not good Mexican food either. Compared.
Probably miss your mom's cooking.
Yeah. But another issue, I guess, is trying to find people that are like-minded. Trying to find other Hispanics that kind of have the same values as you. Christian values. It's difficult.
Yeah, outside of the university.
Outside of the university.
Are you able to find that when you're in?
Yeah, I've been able to interact with a lot of them, and it's been interesting.
We're going back to your counseling aspect and kind of what made you study it and helping people. I was talking to some of the counseling department heads today, and they were telling me that there has been just a huge mental health issue with a lot of the students that are currently attending universities. And they used to have a chaplain program where you had a chaplain on the floor, of every floor, and they would be able to kind of work with counseling, but these were students. And so what they've gone to do now is where they're going to have a chaplain for the freshmen, right, on the floors. And then for the different buildings or dorms, they're going to have an actual professional counselor to help, because a lot of the students that were chaplains were dealing with a lot of difficulties in academics and emotional stuff themselves, that it was hard for them to pour out and at the same time still be able to succeed. Is that something you agree with?
Yeah, I know my chaplain. He's a great chaplain, but he has like a broad personal life, and then he's also in the military as well. And throughout the years, there's been many chaplains where they are available, but sometimes they have jobs they're doing, studying. They're not always there available.
And so you think having a professional counselor would be something that would help?
Yeah, because they already know how to handle these kind of situations.
Is there a field in counseling that you feel called to, that you feel like you're going to specialize in?
Currently at the moment, I believe family and youth is the main two ones that I want to work with. Just because I've been working all throughout my life, and I've seen many different types of families throughout the years and what they struggle, and it's important to keep them together.
You know, something I think is interesting, a lot of students go to university and they accumulate a lot of debt, and it's very expensive. Can you share a little bit about your story, about how you were able to pay your way through a very expensive, like when I was here, it was like $20,000. How much is undergrad now? 40, it's double. And so how, you're not in, you went through undergrad without any debt, right?
Yeah.
So how has that happened? How did that happen?
Just to the grace of God, because I think it was like 2 weeks into college, and they were trying to get everything set up, and they said I could still come and everything was fine. Payments were only $1,000. It was very affordable, and I have no idea how we did it, but I graduated without owing anything.
Yeah, I remember even the COVID year, like suddenly the school got extra money, and I guess they started giving it to students. That was like a free year, huh?
Yeah.
That was kind of crazy. Like, we never experienced anything like that. That's a blessing, you know? And I think it's an important story that, people from other countries that come to, it's very international, right?
Yes.
That come to this university knowing how expensive it is, and that it seems like God finds a way to pay through that stuff, right?
Yes.
In grad school, have you had similar experiences, or how do you feel with grad schools? I know it's different than undergrad, right? So what's up?
Also the same. I think like every year that I've been here for like past 6 years, it's always like very last second if we're going to be able to afford it or not, and somehow we always manage to find a way.
Yeah, I think it's important, that your faith and then also your parents' faith, because a lot of times, they're the ones doing everything they can to help give you a better life, and that family unit is a big part of support. But I know as a student who went through grad school, it's hard being like, hey, Mom, I need like $20 because I can't afford to do this, or I got to pay for that. And when they're helping you with other things, sometimes it feels like a weight, right? Like even asking for something so small, because they've given us so much, and I remember going through that experience myself, and I can feel heavy. But sometimes we forget that they worked so hard to get us to this country. They worked so hard and paid so many prices and sacrifices just to get us to a point to where we could hopefully do something better with our lives, and hopefully we can help others. Do you see yourself, where do you see yourself in like 5 years?
Hopefully being a licensed counselor, and at least being able to make enough to support me and my family, not just like whoever spouse I end up with, but like my mom and dad and even my brother. I hope to be able to achieve that, and also just to be able to bring more awareness to counseling, as well as I know that's a big issue.
How is that in the Mexican culture? Like, it's very machista, right?
Yeah, that's what I was kind of referencing when I said culture. A lot of the Hispanic culture, because the family structure is
It's like a stigma, right?
yeah, like men have to be tough, they can't show emotions, and because of that, and from the father, the father learned that from their father, and then it passes on to their son, and it just keeps passing on, and after a while, people can't bottle it up anymore.
Is there something you'd like to share with people to kind of think about, or if they should study or even pay go to a university? Like, does it make a difference? Is it worth it?
I believe it's worth it. And I think one thing that I would kind of just kind of leave for people to kind of think is when it comes to men not showing emotions, Jesus wept. He cried when he was going to get killed. He showed emotions. God can use anybody. Throughout the Bible, we see that all the important people that he used that were broken people that had disabilities. I think it was Moses who had trouble speaking. Some people say it was a speech impediment. or something of the sorts. And it's like, despite those disabilities, God can use anybody.
Yeah, he had like a stutter, and he told God, I need, this person, I need Aaron to speak for me because I can't do it, and it was interesting. God still used him greatly, even like first 5 books of the Bible. You referenced Jesus wept, he was there. Lazarus was his friend, and he died, and he'd been dead for like, 3 or 4 days. And they're like, no, don't open the tomb. He's going to smell bad. And this is Jesus. This is God. And he sees that, and he cries because of that human emotion that he felt. But they still rolled away that stone, right? They still called him out and said, Lazarus, come on out here. And then he was bound up. And Jesus didn't unbind him. He said, hey, loosen. He's free. And I think that's a beautiful metaphor for what Christ has done even in our lives, that sometimes we have these things that are binding us up, and God's like, just take it off. And he calls us for a greater purpose and kind of leads us in that. How much do you have left in university? You know how much time you have?
I think about 2.5 years left.
Okay. What do you do? When do you head into the licensure work for anybody that doesn't know what that looks like?
Well, it takes usually around 3 to 4 years. And it takes I think, depending on each state, there's different exams that you must do. And also varies between the amount of hours you have to do. I think it's 1,500 for Texas, face-to-face. And then 500 via online but it's a lot of hours, and each state is very different.
Yeah, for counseling, face-to-face, writing notes, intakes, and those type of things, and having that. Well, I appreciate your time. Thank you. We came all the way from university for homecoming, and we wanted to check in on you and see how things are going, and send a message. Is there something you'd like to say to your dad in Spanish, just so he can kind of? What do you think?
So, gracias para mi padre y madre, y también mi hermano para ayudándome estando aquí. Es un privilegio.
Gracias. Muchísimas gracias. Gracias por su tiempo.